Good morning and welcome to Find the Belly. Today we have myself, Mighty Pete, and we're joined by Alison Trethewey-Smith. Good
Well
morning.
done. Good
Thank you.
morning.
Lovely to have you on the show, Alison. So tell us, who are you, what are you doing, where are you from?
Thanks for having me, Pete. Yeah, I'm Alison Trethewey-Smith, well pronounced. I live in Kent, in the UK, and I've been on a massive journey for most of my life, and it just gets better and better. My career originally was in the City of London as working in stockbroking. And then from there I've changed, as you'll probably hear, to different things since then.
That's awesome. So I mean, it sounds like, it's great you've been on that journey. Has it always been in the UK? Have you gone further afield?
Yeah, no, I've always been in the UK. I love traveling, so traveled a lot, but not through work so much. I have recently been out to Gozo to a retreat as a practitioner there, so that was lovely, but yeah, not so much. Always been in the UK. Yeah.
No, fantastic. So tell us, what does Find the Belly mean to you?
For me personally, it's changing the world to a healthier place. Actually, getting people to see that actually it's within their remit to be able to make their life better and healthier. It's about taking responsibility for our own health and well-being, really, and that's what I've been on a journey to try and do.
Yeah, because generally, I mean, sort of the City of London and stockbroking and everything else.
Yeah, so that's where it started, as you can probably imagine. When I worked in the city, I was doing a 4-hour commute. So I started working in the city when I was 17 years old. And I started doing a long commute then, and that went on for 12 years. So I commuted from various places around the UK, but most of the time my door-to-door journey was 2 hours each way. And then, as you can imagine, working in the city was quite stressful. It was stressful, although it was also really good fun. We worked hard and we played hard, and I did enjoy that work. But I found over time that it became that the whole lifestyle became exhausting, and I used to go downhill at times and feel really exhausted. Used to go to the doctors, and he would sign me off for a week or two, once even 6 weeks, and he would just say it was some virus, because I just felt so exhausted. And that's when the term, so that I started there in the 80s in the city, and that's where the term yuppie flu came around. We used to say yuppie flu. So we just assumed that after a couple of weeks rest, I'd be fine again and, go back to work. And for the most part, I had a break and I picked up, but I never really, I suppose actually at the time, I didn't really notice how bad. I mean, I did get tired. I did get really tired, and I did feel down all the time and quite low. I mean, typical day for me would start at 5 o'clock, when my alarm went off, and literally wake, especially in the winter months. I mean, I would go out of the house in the dark and come home in the dark. And I wouldn't bother to have breakfast or a drink even. I literally would get out of bed, have a quick shower. I wouldn't even bother washing my hair because I didn't have time to blow dry it, and literally out in the car to the station into work. And I'd be at my desk by about 8:30. So I'd get a train about 6:15, be at my desk about 8:30, grab something quick and unhealthy on the way to work and eat it at my desk. And then by about 11:30, I was going back out to get a sandwich because I'm starving, because I've been up hours. And that was at the time of, long lunches as well. So we used to, if the work wasn't there, we would have a long lunch. So we would be at the wine bar for 3 hours at a time. And it was what people did, because our bosses knew that we would make up that time when we got back to our desk. And also, if there was work, we would stay and do it. So it was more accepted that way. So yeah, a bit of alcohol at lunch times, and then of course the journey home. I'd get home about 7ish, and then I'd have to cook dinner. So yeah, that was like that for 12 years. And you can see why, you know, my health sort of went up and down. And so I did suffer with burnout. You know, looking back now, I know that was burnout. So I just sort of struggled along. I didn't have much of a social life to speak of. You know, weekends were taken up with housework, shopping, DIY. You know, the friends we had tended to be the people that we worked with. So we'd go for a drink after work, go out after work in London, and then come home. I didn't really have time for friends locally. So you can imagine when I finally left work to have our son, I was 28 when I left work to have him, 28, 29. And I was ecstatic. I was really ready. Although I was getting to a point in my career where actually I could have gone on to really have, you know, quite a good job. I've taken compliance exams and the stock exchange exams. So I was actually, that's the thing, isn't it? Being a woman, I wanted to start a family, and I also knew that once I started a family, there's no way I would continue with that commute. I wouldn't continue with that work, because there'd be no point having a family. So I knew that I would give up work, and we set it up, my husband and I, that I didn't have to go back to work. You know, financially, we weren't mortgaged to the hilt. We were careful. I think the most thing we were worried about was not being able to afford holidays, because we had to have 3 holidays a year. We used to love just doing a spur of the. They were the days of teletext. You'd go on the TV and book a holiday on teletext, and we'd just do a last minute thing and had the best holidays, which was really good. But anyway, so I left work, and I just felt elated to leave by that time. And having a newborn baby was a breeze, because I was used to 5-hour sleep, 5-hour nights. I used to go to bed at midnight, you know, when I was working, and be up at 5, and I did that for years. So a newborn baby really wasn't a challenge for me, and I loved every minute of it. I just didn't get that bit that a lot of people get, where they're not getting very much sleep. I was used to existing on not a lot of sleep, but actually I felt more relaxed because I had space in the day, so I could rest in the day, whereas when I was working I couldn't do that. I was on the go all the time. So I loved it. I loved being mum to a newborn baby, and to me life felt absolutely perfect. You know, I felt that I had everything, you know, and you know, we didn't have any money worries. We were okay there, not loads of money, but we had enough to pay the bills and enough for a holiday. We had a holiday when my son was a year old. And then when our son was 16 months old, we were away staying. My dad was looking after a pub for somebody in Wales, and we all went down, a whole family went down for Christmas. And on Christmas Day, my husband fell ill. He didn't get out of bed when everyone else did to open their presents, and I kept going into his room and, you know, saying, come on, are you going to get up? And I was starting to get a bit annoyed, because I thought, you know, our little boy is only 16 months old. He wants, not that he knew much about Christmas, but, you know, I want to see him open his presents, and started to get a bit annoyed with him. And it got to about 2 o'clock, 2:30, and because it was a pub, we ate our dinner a bit later. And I went up and I said, come on, his name was Tony. I said, come on, Tony, you need to get out of bed now. We're going to eat. And I managed to rouse him. He was really sweaty. He was obviously had a fever. And I thought, oh, bless his heart, you know, he's got flu. And I didn't realise I'd been nagging him and saying, come on, get up, get up. And I thought, oh, he's got flu, common time of the year. And the thing is, he worked in the city as well. Christmas was a tiring time. You know, you'd go out a lot, but you'd also have to carry on working. So he was exhausted. And so I started to wake him up. I said, look, are you feeling poorly? Do you not want dinner? And when he spoke back to me, what he was saying wasn't relevant to what I was asking. And he was talking about, so we'd been in this pub, and the night before he'd been working behind the bar, helping my dad work behind the bar. And he was coming out with things like, oi, mate, have you paid for that drink? And saying things like that. And it was, at first I thought he was joking, because he was always the joker. And then I realised he wasn't. I thought, this isn't right, you know, this isn't him. Anyway, I remember running. It scared me because he just was a different person. And I remember running down, like, it was a really old pub and the stairs were all higgledy-piggledy. And to this day, I'm sure I flew down those stairs. I'm sure my feet did not touch the stairs. I just felt like I flew. Couldn't get down there quick enough. And I went over to my dad and my brother-in-law and I said, there's something wrong with Tony. I don't know what's wrong with him. You need to come and have a look. So they came up. And the person that owned the pub that my dad was looking after it for was visiting for Christmas, and he was in the pharmaceutical world, and he came up with us, and he said he's probably dehydrated. You know, he'd obviously had some alcohol the night before, although not a lot, but he's been in bed a long time, and he's not been drinking, and he's probably dehydrated. I'd also noticed there was a sink, a basin in the room that we were in, because it was a pub, and I'd noticed that he'd been sick in the sink in between times that I'd been up there. So he'd obviously got up and was ill. And so they were all talking to him and trying to rouse him, and he was just really sleepy. We couldn't get him to wake up. Anyway, eventually we thought, we need to get him up, we need to get some fluids into him and get him downstairs. So the men, and he was really hot and sweaty, so my dad and my brother-in-law helped me to get him in the shower, and I was practically in the shower with him, trying to shower him down. He just couldn't hold himself up, and so we washed and dressed him, and he was really cold, shivering. Took him downstairs, and we were trying to eat lunch. He was sat by a window in a comfortable chair, and we were just trying to get him to drink, and he just slept all the time. And you can imagine Christmas dinner, and we're all sat there looking at him thinking, this isn't right. Eventually, after the second course, I said to Dad, we need to ring a doctor. We can't leave this. And he wasn't registered with the doctor, but we managed to get hold of the doctor. And she said, can you get him to the surgery? So this was in Tintern. We were down in Gloucestershire, near Tintern Abbey. And we took him to the surgery down there. And all the time that the doctor was looking over him, he was asleep. He was snoring on her bed. He was just, she was just pulling him about, looking at him, and he just slept all the way through it. Anyway, afterwards she said to me, well, I think there's something wrong with his brain. He's either had a stroke or there's something else going on. So she said, I need to get him to a hospital. So she called an ambulance, and being Christmas Day, we thought, not sure. The nearest hospital was Newport. I think it was about 25 miles away. So we took him, we followed the ambulance. My mum and I followed along in our car with the ambulance. And we sat in A&E all Christmas Day, right up until the evening. And he slept all the time. We were waiting hours. You can imagine there's lots of drunks in there, you know, because it's Christmas Day. And we were waiting for hours for him to be seen. And he just slept all the time. Then when the doctor came round to examine him, suddenly he was awake. And I just thought, that's unbelievable. You know, all day you've been like this. But he still wasn't really with it. He was quite confused. The one thing I noticed was his eyes looked different. He was always really happy. The one thing I remember when I first met him were his eyes. He had joy in his eyes all the time. But his eyes had changed and there was no joy left. They were distant. And so the doctors were asking him questions, and we realized from the questions they were asking him that he had lost his long-term memory. So there were things, so he was asking him things like, what was his watch strap? What was this called? And he didn't know what it was called. But he would come out with some random word for it. And then he asked him if he had any children, and he said, yes, I've got a son. What's his name? Thomas. So he remembered everything near. And when he asked him, so in stockbroking, he used to work out the commissions and everything for the trades that they did. So he was using figures every day. The doctor asked him to do some figure work, and he did that no problem, because it was something that he'd used every day. Anything in the past, he couldn't remember. So, and the other thing that kept happening, he kept smelling things. He kept saying, what's that awful smell? What's that horrible smell? And I said, we can't smell anything, Tony. What does it smell like? And when you asked him what it smelled like, he would just say something random, like there were surgical gloves up on the shelf, and he'd say it smells like surgical gloves. And it's just because he'd read that on the box. But we couldn't smell anything. So anyway, we didn't know what was going on. They said we need to keep him in overnight to observe him, so you'll need to go home, and we'll call you in the morning. So my mum and I went home, drove home, or back to the pub, and Boxing Day morning, I didn't sleep very well, and then Boxing Day morning I rang the hospital and said, you know, can we come and pick him up? And they said, oh yeah, you can come and pick him up. So we went along and went to the nursery stations, and they were going to send us home with him without saying anything. They said, oh, we need to get him referred, so we'll send a letter to his doctor, and you'll get, when you get home, you'll get an appointment. And that's all they said. This is the nurses on the nursing station. I said, well, you know, and he obviously wasn't right. He still wasn't right. And I was scared because he wasn't the same person. He was like a lost child. He was really confused. He didn't know where he was. He was saying random things, and they let me take him home like that. And we had a long journey back to Kent from Wales. You know, we weren't due to go home for a few days, and I was really scared. I was the driver. He didn't drive. He never drove. So I was going to have to drive him and our little boy with him like that. And you know, it could be a 5-hour journey for us. And so I said, I need to speak to somebody. You need to tell me what's going on, because I'm a bit scared. He's scared. He's worried. He was almost like in a depressed state. You know, he really, anyway, they said, well, he's going to need to have a brain scan, but because it's Christmas, we don't have anyone here to do the brain scan. So we need to send you home and you have to have it done. Anyway, we got back, rang our doctors on Boxing Day and said, look, we're going to come home tomorrow, because by that time it was later in the day. We're going to come home tomorrow. Can we get a doctor's appointment? And they made it for us as late in the day as possible, so that we could get there, because we didn't know how long it was going to take us to get home. And we literally got to this appointment by the skin of our teeth. I drove home from Wales to Kent and went in to see our doctor. He straight away sent us to the hospital. He said, I cannot believe that they sent you away. I can't believe that they let you out of hospital. You need to get back. So we then went the day after Boxing Day and sat in our own local A&E and went through the same thing. We sat there for hours waiting to see doctors, went through all the same tests. They kept him in overnight again. And then the next day I went to see, I think they gave him a CAT scan the next day. And they said, you know, we need to send him for an MRI scan. So I remember those, you know, with New Year's Day, I think we both had a bad case of the flu. He was home by then, and it was just awful. But I remember it being a case of waiting. You know, whenever anyone tells me that they're going through this with their loved ones, the overriding thing I remember is having to wait. You know, you don't sleep, you're worrying, you're thinking the worst, and it's the waiting all the time, because they'll do a test and then you have to wait 2 weeks to get an answer if you're lucky, because it has to go. And I understand why. You know, all different consultants have to see that test. They can't just, you know, randomly come out with something if they're wrong. You know, they have to be careful what they say, and I do understand that. But for the person going through it, I remember it's just awful. So cut a very long story short, tests, and then we went up to King's College Hospital in London. He had an MRI scan, and we went back to our local hospital to get the results. And I remember sitting in the consultant's office, and he said to me, well, we can tell you the results of the MRI. It turns out that Tony had an epileptic fit. Now, my first thought was, oh, well, that's all right then. You know, I've got family that have got epilepsy. And I just thought, to me, I just went, oh, what a relief, because I thought they can give him medication, they can sort this out, and he'll be right again, he'll be fine. And so the consultant saw my reaction. I went, oh, because I was thinking he had a stroke. And even that, I was thinking, you know, if he's had a stroke, it's not, he hasn't lost physically. It can, you know, his mind can come back. They can do things. We can sort it out. We can find out why he had it. So when he said epilepsy, to me, that was a bonus. You know, I just thought, oh, that's okay then. And then the consultant said, I don't think you understand what I'm saying. He said, the reason he had an epileptic fit is because he's got a brain tumor. And so they'd seen this mass on his brain, and it sounds really silly, but I said, well, I didn't even really know what a brain tumor was. You know, I hadn't really up to that point had anybody close to me die of cancer. So I hadn't really gone into that world. I know that sounds really weird, but I didn't. And so I was thinking, okay, is that, so he explained, and he said, we'll need to operate to see the extent of the tumor. And when we do, we will also look to see if it's malignant. And I didn't know that word. And that was a shock, because then all of a sudden I thought, oh, okay, now we're talking different, you know, now we're talking cancer. Anyway, at the time, so my husband at the time was 41. So I was 29, he was 41. And because he was so young and he was so fit physically, I mean, he not long before that, he'd stopped coaching football. He played football. He was slim. He didn't drive, so he walked everywhere. He was very fit, very fit. So they said, you know, we would like to try this new procedure that we have, because before that they used to do a craniotomy. Often they used to cut the skull right the way across. And he said, we've got this, one of our surgeons in London is using a new procedure where they just put probes. So they make 3 holes and they use probes. I mean, now it's commonplace, but then it wasn't. So he said they'll have a hole for the camera and then a hole for the probes or whatever. So he said, would you be happy to go for this? Obviously he was speaking to Tony, but he wasn't really compos mentis, and I was just saying, well, yeah, I definitely, I think we should. And they said, we warn you, you know, he is a bit of a guinea pig. It's not going to come to any more harm. It's actually a better procedure than what we normally do. It's a safer procedure. The recovery time is a lot quicker. So they literally got him up to King's College Hospital within 2 days for the operation. And we were really lucky in that my husband's company, and I will name them because they were amazing. They were called NCL Investments at the time, a stockbroking firm in the city. They were amazing. They made our life so much easier. So he had personal healthcare, private healthcare. So he was able to go to private room because he hated hospitals, hated them. He had a real thing about them. So it meant that I was able to sleep in his room with him beforehand, and I slept on a mattress on the floor. And thankfully, I'd brought our son up to be used to staying at families, you know, and that's another thing I tell anybody, any new mum, I say, you know, however much of a wrench it is for you to let your child stay with family from a young age, do it, because get them used to it, because that for me was a godsend. Thomas was not fazed by having to stay at my sister's. I knew that I could just take him to my sister's, which was in Colchester, so I had to get him there first, take him to my sister's, and I didn't have to worry about him because I knew that he loved staying with Auntie Tina, and I didn't have to worry. That was the godsend, because then I could just focus on Tony. So we stayed in the hospital. I stayed the night before his op. My mum came up the next day and we waited while they did surgery on him, which was about 6 or 7 hours surgery. And then the neurosurgeon came out to tell us how it went, and he said it went really well. He's in recovery now, so you'll be able to see him when he comes round. And they said they had managed to what they called debulk the tumour by about 90%. So in other words, they've cut away 90% of it, and they can't obviously go into the brain so much because they can damage it. So that's as close as they could get. But they said, we will now, he said, I think what we'll probably, oh no, they didn't know at the time. So he said that will then go away for testing to see if it's malignant. But he said that's good news. Anyway, when he came round from recovery, he was like a different person. He was almost back to the Tony before. His eyes weren't right still, but his sense of humour was there. He looked like a different, and that was just amazing, you know. So it was the pressure of the tumour on his brain that was causing all these symptoms, and obviously pain and the fits. And the smell that he was getting was epileptic fits. Often with epilepsy, you get unusual smells, so that's what that was. So anyway, we went back, and then you've got that wait again, another wait until they call you to give you the result. So is it cancer? Is it not cancer? You know, you're just waiting, trying to be positive. So eventually we went back for the results, and we were told that it was malignant, that the tumour was malignant. But he said that they graded it at a grade 1 tumour, I think, or 1 or 2 tumour. And they said, so that could mean he could live with this for 20 years, 30 years. We don't know, but he said people with a grade tumour like that have been known to live that long. And he said, what we'd like to do is give you a 6-week course of radiotherapy to destroy the remaining cells. So again, we started the radiotherapy. And so it was every day, every weekday for 6 weeks. So we lived in Ashford in Kent at the time, and I used to drive him to Canterbury every day with Thomas in tow, going for his treatment. And it's really weird how you can find enjoyment even at the hardest of times. You know, we had some lovely moments in the oncology unit at Canterbury Hospital, and we used to you tended to have the same time appointment every day because that made it easier for everybody. You knew where you were, so you'd have the same slot every day. So we used to see the same people in the oncology corridor waiting to go in. Tony had to have a mask made up, a plastic mask, so they could keep him still on the bed, and so we take that along with us. And he was in a wheelchair for some of that time because they'd put him on steroids, which had made his muscles weak. So he was in a wheelchair, and I used to wheel him in the wheelchair, and Thomas would be sitting on his lap. Now Thomas was a really cute 18-month-old. You know, he was a cute baby. I know I'm his mum, I'm going to say that, but he was a really cute baby. I even used to get teenage boys saying how cute he was, you know, and they shouldn't be thinking about cute babies at that time, but he was cute. And so I'd wheel in with him, he'd sit on Tony's lap, and we'd go in. And in the hospital at that time, along the wall that we used to sit in the corridor, there was a big a painting,
mural,
mural on the wall, and it was of a countryside scene. So there was a horse with his head over the gate, and there was all these little, so Thomas loved this mural, you know, all the animals on it, and he loved it. And one day he sat there and he was looking at the horse, and he started singing, horsey, horsey, don't you stop, just let your feet go, clipsy clop. He had the whole of the people in the waiting line singing that song. So these are all people that are going through treatment for cancer, and we were all singing in the corridor. And that is how, sorry I get emotional now, but that is how my life was at that time, because I had this gorgeous little toddler that actually was oblivious to what was going on, really. That made it easier because I had happiness mixed with the sadness. I couldn't be sad for long, you know. I couldn't be in a down state for long because he just brought that happiness, which was amazing. And everybody in the at the oncology unit loved him. And when Tony finished his treatment, they were really sad to see us go, you know. But anyway, during that treatment, the 6 weeks was extended because Tony fell ill again. He started to get a lot of pain in his head. He couldn't see, and he started to be sick from the pain. So he was then rushed back to hospital. They then took him by ambulance that night up to King's College Hospital. And I then had to get Thomas to my sister's in Colchester. So the next day I literally drove to Colchester with my mum and dropped him off at my sister's, and then headed up back to the hospital in London. We got the train up. And when I got to my sister's, she said, oh, I've been wondering where you are. You know, we've had a message from the neurosurgeon. He's wondering where you are. He needs to speak to you urgently. So I was really worried, and we literally turned around, dropped Thomas off, went and got a train up to London. And when we got there, they were all in their scrubs waiting to operate on him. And he said, where have you been? We needed to get out. I'm really sorry. I had to take my son to my sister's because it's the only person I could have to, because I knew I could just leave him. And so he said, look, we need to operate. He said, he's either got meningitis, which I don't know which is this, infection of the meninges. It's not the one you catch, it's because of an infection. Or the tumour has grown back in weeks, literally. So he said, I need you to sign perform. And he was amazing the way he explained it to us. It was, I had to make a decision, but he took that decision away from me, which was a really nice thing. He was amazing. I don't know how he did it, but he said, we've got to do this operation. The only way we can find out what it is by doing this operation. And he said, but because he's already had an operation just literally weeks ago, we could end up leaving him with brain damage. And so you need to sign to say that you're happy with that. And it's a decision that I don't know. As I say, he made it easy for me. He made that decision easy. I don't know what he said, but it was, you know, I had to do it, because he said if it is meningitis, we can give him high doses of antibiotics and he'll be fine. So how could I not, you know, you just do. So you had to take that risk. Anyway, he had another operation, another 6-hour operation. We then had to wait a couple of weeks for the results, or 2 or 3 weeks for the results of that. And when we went back, they told us that actually the tumour had grown back. So what happens, where they debulk the tumour, that leaves a cavity, that space that tumour has been filling this, you know, pushing against the brain. When they took it away, it leaves a cavity. And if the brain doesn't grow back quicker than the tumour, you know, if the tumour's fast growing, the tumour will fill that space quicker. And that's what happened, the tumour did. So he said, we're now grading it as a grade 4 tumour. And he said that if it were my wife, he said, I wouldn't put her through any more treatment. I would say that whatever you've got left, you need to have quality of life. So because Tony had had a second operation and they'd taken more of the tumour away, his symptoms had eased again. So he was in a better state of mind. He knew a bit more about what was going on. Enough of a state of mind to say, no, I want treatment. And, you know, I'm going to fight this. And I would have done the same. You know, you just don't give up, do you? Most people, you know, if you think there's a chance, you just do it. And that was his. Well, I say that my views are different now, actually, but at the time I got it. And so anyway, he carried on with the treatment. He did finally manage to finish it on his birthday, on his 42nd birthday was his last day of treatment. And I got a lot of his colleagues down from the city to be there when he got back. His mum took him to hospital that day, and when he came back, there were all his colleagues, and he was just so pleased to see them all. He missed all his colleagues so much, and we had a little bit of a party. He was exhausted, but we had a little bit of a party. So he finished the treatment, and that was in May. And you know, time went on, and he got to do the things. He wanted to go fishing again because he was a great fisherman. So he wanted to go fishing, and he kept saying, the doctor, our local doctor, his name was Dr. Cooney, really lovely man. And I loved him because he made light. Tony was a person that made a joke of everything. And so the doctor was on his level, and they laughed together, and it was just really lovely. So he used to come round to check his reflex, you know, to check up on him. And sometimes Tony would be in bed if he was having a bad day, and he would run his pencil up the sole of Tony's foot to see what his reflexes were like. Well, Tony was really highly ticklish. He hated his feet being touched. When he was ill and I had to wash him and shower him, he wouldn't let me dry his feet. He just left them wet rather than let me dry his feet because he was so sensitive. So the doctor, the first time he did this, Tony really shouted at him. I mean, bearing in mind his mind was completely different to how he was normally. He would go, "What do you think you're doing?" He said, "What are you doing? You don't touch my feet," and all that. And the doctor said, oh, sorry, like that. He said, "I won't do it again. It's fine." Anyway, he needed to do it, and he would just walk past the end of the bed and just do it like that. And he'd go, "Oh, Tony, I told you not to do it." And it was just so funny. They'd make a joke. But he used to say to him, "So have you been fishing then? Have you been fishing yet then, Tony?" And Tony'd say, "No, I'm going. I am going to go before I die. I'm going to go." Because that was the thing. They had to, when he was in the hospital, they had to tell him that he was dying, that he wasn't, because he was asking, "Am I dying?" You don't lie. It's a way of telling them. So he knew that he was dying. And that was the worst thing. The neurologist, neurosurgeon told him that. I didn't want to be the one that told him that. He kept asking me. And I said to the neurosurgeon, he keeps asking me if he's going to die, and I don't know how to say it. I don't know what to say. And he said, "Leave it to me." He said, we can do that. And the other reason he spoke to him was that we were having, you know, all the everyday stuff. We were having issues with money. You know, he was accusing me of stealing money. It was, his mind wasn't in the right place. It was really because I was having to say to him, we had separate bank accounts. I wasn't working then because I was at home with the baby, so I'd given up work. So all the money went into his bank account. I couldn't pay for shopping. So I kept saying to him, Tony, I need to be put on the bank account so that I can pay for shopping and pay the bills. And also his signature was getting really, you know, so I said, we need to do this. And he, when I was having this conversation, he kept saying, you're trying to steal my money. And it was horrible. It's all the practicalities, you know, the things you don't think of, you know. Anyway, the neurosurgeon spoke to him and he said, look, you know, I don't know how he told him, but he told him that he was going to die. And he said, in a very gentle way, and he said, you need to put things in place for your wife and son. You know, the last thing you want when you're gone is for them to not be able to pay bills, not to get food. Would you want that for your wife and son? And it was after that he did it, and I was just so grateful for that. And I was able to pay for shopping, because there was one day I went to pay for a big load of shopping and they refused the card, and he transferred all the money out, you know. And so it was just things like that. But anyway, we sorted that. And so he did go fishing. So he got out of a wheelchair, he started walking again, and we had probably about 2 months of as close to the old Tony as we're going to get. And he went fishing. We took him, his mum, myself, and Thomas. We took him fishing. And this is relevant, this story I'm telling you now. We were sat on the riverbank, and Thomas was watching we were watching the dragonflies. The cover of my book has a dragonfly on it, and it's for this purpose. So he was watching the dragonfly hitting the water, and he said, Mummy, why does he hit the water? You know, why does he not go under the water? So I said, well, he can't go under the water. I said, you know, he swims around, he can't go under there. And we were watching them, and you know, I was just saying, he used to be a water bug, but now he's got wings and he can't go back under the water. Anyway, fast forward, and eventually Tony did pass away. I nursed him at home right up until the day he died. He never wanted to go into a hospice. And I didn't want to put him into a hospice because I knew how he felt about hospitals, and I know hospices aren't the same, but I wanted, he had a glint in his eye every time he saw Thomas running around. Our vicar became our very good friend. So the vicar who married us, he became our very good friend, and he used to visit Tony regularly. They used to talk about death, and Tony wasn't scared of it, you know, in the end, because of our vicar. It was amazing. And I remember one day our vicar saying to us, why don't we move your bed downstairs, because it's really hard for you to have a normal life down here with Thomas and be able to keep an eye on him up there, because he was having seizures all the time. So if he got up to go to the toilet and had a seizure, he might fall, and, you know, and I was worried all the time, you know, I was living on eggshells. So that's what he said, we'll move. So the vicar helped me move our bed downstairs, and we put it in the dining room, and that meant Tony could be in bed, and when he woke up, he could see Thomas running around, and life was going on as normal, and that was as happy as he was going to get. And I didn't want to take that away from him. So I refused about it, and it was getting quite near Christmas, and our doctor said, come on, Alison. We had nurses coming out to Tony to do his syringe drive with the drugs and everything. And he, should I stop? And he, yeah, he was there, and they used to come out, and the doctor said to me, you know, it's hard for you. You've got a toddler running around, you know. I think they were probably worried about, looking back, they were probably worried about that Thomas was okay, that I was able to look after him properly. You know, he was a child, he was vulnerable. Not that I wasn't looking after him properly, but they were worried that I wouldn't be able to be there for them both. You know, that I may be there for Thomas and for Tony, and then maybe neglect Thomas or something. So he kept saying, you know, should we see if we can get him in a hospice? So I don't want to. Anyway, the nurses used to come out a couple of times a day to change his syringe drive. He fought for 7 weeks on diamorphine. I mean, usually once they go on diamorphine, it's fairly quick, but because he was physically strong, I mean, he weighed nothing. He was, you know, tiny, lost a lot of weight. He hadn't eaten for 7 weeks. He didn't eat, he didn't drink. I couldn't get fluids down him. We had a commode downstairs, so I could get him to the toilet there. He hated me putting him on the commode. He always wanted to go upstairs to the toilet. My mum came and moved in with us. She stayed. She was still working, so she had to go back and forth to work, but she stayed with us as much as she could. And in that time, she potty trained Thomas, and I didn't even know she'd done it. he was out of nappies, and I didn't even know she'd done it. So when people talk to me about potty train, I go, oh, it was easy. I didn't even know. So she did that, bless her. She just took over there, you know. So this one day I said to the doctor, okay, we'll put his name down for a hospice. And the next day, I woke up, I was laying next to him, and I felt the heat off of his body, you know, like he had the temperature. I could just feel him burning. And he was laying, and his eyes were open, but he was just gazing towards the patio doors where our bed was, with his eyes open. But I knew that he was semi-conscious. I knew that he wasn't quite there, although he was there. And I knew that was the day. So I had lived for months and months wondering when that day was going to come, and nobody ever knows. You know, nobody ever knows. Nobody can tell you. You look for signs, they pick up, they go down, and then suddenly I knew that day was there. So I remember I hugged him, because I thought, my mum's she's upstairs in bed. She's going to be down in a minute. This is my last time with you. This is my last time on our own. Sorry. And I talked about our wedding day. And I told him, talked about when I saw him on our wedding day. I knew he could hear me. He didn't react, but I knew he could hear me. I knew he could hear me. So I talked to him for a while. And then I went upstairs to my mum. And I just looked at her, and she knew something. So I got Thomas dressed, and I took him over to my neighbour's house. I had really good neighbours, and I just took him over. She was in the shower, and she came down with her towel round her, and I literally just handed Thomas over, and she went, he'll be fine, you just go. And then I rang his mum and dad, and they arrived, the vicar came, and we spent the day with him. He didn't actually pass away until 6:30 in the evening, but we all spent the day with him, cuddling him, laying on the bed with him. There was a time when he had me one side, his mum the other, and it was a peaceful passing, really peaceful. The only time he ever responded was when our vicar did the last rites, when he committed him to, you know, and he grunted back to him as if to say thank you. And we had the nurses come in. I can remember, they call them the Death Rattles, and it's something you're not told about. I didn't know that was going to happen. I didn't even think about it. And so there was all this gurgling, and you could hear it all over the house for ages, for hours. And I just thought, oh, why can't that stop? The nurse came, and she literally just turned him on his side. And I felt really guilty, because I thought I could have done that. I could have done that hours ago, you know, and I didn't. But it's things like that you're not told, you know. In a hospice, they know about that. Anyway, he did pass away, and as I say, it was peaceful. I was with him. If there could be any good death, that was it. The pain that he went through leading up to it wasn't so nice, but the death was, yeah. And I remember I howled like an animal. My neighbours knew that he'd passed away because they heard me, and that was it. So I'm going to end that story now. But life went on. I had to pick myself up, dust myself down, and get on with life, which is exactly what I did. I used to feel the grief, like, because I'd push it down because I had Thomas, you know, running around. So life goes on, and he was happy. I couldn't be. Oh, I remember the next day. So he died on the 30th of November. And the next day was 1st of December. And I'd got Thomas an advent calendar. So I said, oh, look, Thomas. So he came back after Tony's body had been taken away. Now, the first time he came, I put him in his cot that night. And so when I got him up the next morning, I took him downstairs, and obviously Tony wasn't in the bed anymore. And I thought, when's he going to notice that Daddy isn't in the bed? Because he used to jump up on the bed and cuddle him. So I carried him out. We got the advent calendar. We opened the advent calendar. And it was, oh, look at that. I said, that's Daddy's star. And how do you tell a 2-year-old, he was 2 by then, how do you tell a 2-year-old about death? I mean, we don't even understand it half the time. How do you explain that he's never going to see his daddy again and that he's died? What does that word mean? So I just said, look, there's a star. And I thought, that's appropriate. There's a star. So I said, that's Daddy's star. I said, whenever you see that star, we can think of Daddy. And obviously, this is just washing over him. He's not, you know, I didn't know what I was saying really, or how I was saying it. Anyway, we went to the back door, and as we looked out the back door, snow came down. It started to snow. I said, look at that, Daddy sent you snow. I said, you know, I opened your advent calendar and Daddy sent you snow. And I can't remember what else I said to him, but I used to talk about Tony all the time to him. I would say, oh, this was Daddy's favorite meal, or this was Daddy's favorite anything. And that continued. And in fact, to this day, Thomas is 25 years old now. And I will still, if something comes to my mind that I don't think he knows about, I mean, he probably has heard stories over and over again, but if something comes to my mind, I'll tell him. And he's always been grateful for that, because it got him to know the Daddy that he didn't really know, you know. So he's built this picture of him. Anyway, a couple of days after that, our vicar bought a book round for me. And this book, little blue book called Water Bugs to Dragonflies. And this book was a children's story, how to explain death to children through story. So I read this story to Thomas, and he said, that's like those dragonflies, Mummy, that we saw when we went fishing with Daddy. And I thought, how amazing. So all these things came into play that made it easy for me to be able to tell him about death. I mean, that's just amazing, you know. And we used to read this story. And at the time, The Lion King, he had the video of The Lion King, The Circle of Life. And, you know, he used to sit and watch that all the time, The Lion King, you know, when the Daddy dies and he carries on. And so all these things made life a bit easier for me to be able to explain it. So in time, the years went on, and Thomas started school at 4 years old. He was quite young because that's when his birthday fell, and I went back to work. So the financial advisor that had dealt with my like Tony's pension and all that asked me one day if I wanted to go back to work. I was lucky in the fact that I didn't need to financially, but I needed to for my state of mind. Thomas was going to be at school, and I thought I need to get out because I wasn't seeing any adults, you know, and I needed to do that. So I said, I want to work, but I want to work around Thomas's school. I want to take him to school, and I want to pick him up from school. I have to be there for him at the school gate, and I only want to do 3 days a week, because why do 5 when I don't need to? You know, that's a good balance. So I went to work for this IFA, this group of IFAs, and I did their compliance and all this sort of stuff, which is what I was trained in. And one of the men, one of the IFAs, came to me one day and he said, I need to let you know something. He said, I've got a situation that you need to know about, because I might not be able to come in, you know, some days. It turned out his wife was dying from a brain tumor. So 2 years after my husband died, I started to relive it through him, because he had become carer for his wife, and he was going through the same stuff, had 2 young children, and I was supporting him, and he was able to talk to me because I could understand exactly his feelings. So when there were times, you know, the times when he said, I just wish you'd stop fighting, and he felt guilty about saying that, I knew what he felt, you know. And anyway, we became friends, and I used to go, he said to his wife one day, I said to him, I find Sundays the hardest. Sundays are the hardest day for me because I'm used to even when it was just Thomas, Tony and I, Sunday lunch, family days. I'm used to that. I've been brought up with Sunday being about family. I found myself on a Sunday going out shopping or going to McDonald's just to pretend it wasn't Sunday because it hurt so much not having family. And there were times I went to my family and to his and to Tony's family, but he was so obviously missing, so it made it hard. And so he told his wife that, and she said, "Tell Alison to come round here. You know, tell her to come here, and we can spend Sundays together." So I got to know them as a family. She found comfort talking to me because she was going to be leaving 2 boys, and she used to watch Thomas and see how we were coping and how we were getting on, and that gave her peace. And she was really grateful for that. And she used to say to me, "Thomas is a real credit to you. He's a lovely little boy, really polite little boy." And I used to say to her, "That means everything to me, you know, because you don't expect to be doing this on your own. Nobody plans that." And so anyway, she eventually passed away. And in time, although we started off as friends, in time we became a couple. We eventually married. And I took on his children as my own. They were at the time 8 and 12. Yeah, 8 and 12. And yeah, I think that's right. Oh, I don't know. Anyway, I can't remember. It's gone. But they were young. So, but from that day on, life really became challenging for me. I thought that I was not over Tony. I was never going to get over it. I'm not over him to this day. He's the father of my son. But I thought I was strong until I took on another man, 2 more children. So my family went from Thomas and I to this. But it wasn't just that. It was that I was having to support each of them individually. My husband had lost his wife not long before. We got together quite quickly after she died. That's the way it was, you know, and probably looking back, probably not right, but that's what he needed. But so I struggled, and I was trying to be there for them all. The oldest teenager was a challenge. They'd both gone through the death of their mum, you know, that it was going to show itself in different ways. He was a challenge and took up a lot of my time, me trying to help him. Which meant Thomas, really, because he just got on with it, he was happy. I felt like I was not neglecting him, but you know, I spent a lot of time with the older one, and then the middle one was very quiet, and I worried about him because he was quiet and didn't talk about his mum. Anyway, it was a challenge. Life went on. But I was doing the normal things. My husband and I set up our own business as IFAs. We worked from home, which meant I could be there for the boys, getting them to school, being there when they got home. I became school governor. I was with the PTA. I volunteered. I put on a whole weekend of events for the 50th anniversary of the E-Day in Dover. So I arranged this whole weekend. We did a street party for 200 children. All this stuff going on. Big band dances in the town hall. So I really was a glutton for punishment. I stood for county council as a councillor, did all this. But went downhill, and I started to have what I now know were mini breakdowns. And there was one day, so these mini breakdowns are horrible. I became like a Jekyll and Hyde. So I'm normally, from a child, have been a calm person. I'm a quiet person. I like my peace and quiet. I'm calm. But I became somebody I didn't know. It was like a release valve going off in my head. So it would build the frustration and exhaustion. I was very exhausted again, worse than I'd ever been. I ached, my whole body ached. I had pain in my joints. I hardly, you know, I wanted to sleep all the time, but then didn't sleep at night very well. I had all sorts of physical symptoms going on, intolerances to food. I just became a very ill person, but I was still managing this life, fighting to manage this life. So that's why I'd have these breakdowns, you know, because it all got too much, and it just like be an explosion. And during those episodes, I became like a fire-eating dragon. I'd just like shout at the top of my voice, and I hated myself afterwards, you know, in front of the children. I hated that, but I couldn't stop it. I couldn't control it. I don't know where it came from, and I lived with the guilt afterwards. And my husband at the time said, the one thing, I always showed remorse, you know, so if I'd said anything or did anything, I always showed remorse and apologized afterwards. And he said, and that was the one thing that kept him going, you know. And I used to apologize to the children. Anyway, there was this one day that I had one of these episodes, and after this would happen, I would be exhausted. So I can remember this day I was laying on, we had like a chaise longue in the dining room, which was off the kitchen. We lived in a 5-story townhouse then. And the children were upstairs in their bedrooms, and I was on my own down in the chaise longue. And I was laying on the chaise longue feeling absolutely exhausted, spent of all energy. I couldn't even wiggle my fingers or toes. I couldn't cry anymore. I was just exhausted. But I remember my brain was just still whirring, you know, just going round and round, worry, guilt, all these negative emotions going around in my head, and just obsessing over the dire situation I felt I was in and not knowing where to go. And at that point, I noticed the knife block in the kitchen, just off the kitchen. I just, you know, those blocks of wood that have got all the knives in, and my eyes fixed on that. And even though I was exhausted, from somewhere, I managed to drag myself up off of the chaise longue, and I started to head towards the knife block. And I was just about to get there, and all of a sudden, I noticed Thomas standing in front of me. Now, we lived in this townhouse, and they were like landings all the way down, and he used to like bound down the stairs and land with a thud on every landing, and you know, I'd always hear him coming. He was just so noisy, but I hadn't heard him. It was like I was in a zombie-like state. I didn't know where I was, but suddenly he was standing in front of me, asking me what was for dinner. And as I looked down at him, it wasn't his face I saw looking up at me. It was his daddy's face. It was like Tony's face looking up at me. As if to say, what the hell are you doing, type thing. And it just snapped me out of whatever state I was in, and I just sobbed. I hugged him and I sobbed. And I remember thinking, how could I even have got to this stage? How could I even have thought of leaving him without a mummy and a daddy, you know? And it put so much fear into me. That was the first time I'd ever had, and the only and the last time I ever had any form of suicidal thought. And it came from nowhere. Leading up to it, I never thought about ending my life. You know, I'd never have planned that, but it was that spur of the moment thing, because I just felt so desperate. He was there to stop it. So that was when I thought, I need to get help now. This had gone on for years, and I thought I need to get help. So I went to the doctors, not thinking they'd be able to do anything, because, you know, all they can do is prescribe something, and I didn't want that, because I didn't even like taking painkillers for a headache. So anyway, I went there. After tests, he diagnosed me with an underactive thyroid, and he said to me, I said, well, what do you do? You know, he said, well, you need to take thyroxine. I said, how long do I need to take that? He said, for life. And I said, oh, I'm not happy about that, because that's the sort of person I am. I don't like that. I said, there must be a reason why I've got an underactive thyroid. It doesn't just suddenly happen. He went, it's just one of those things. He said, it happens, you know. And he wasn't bothered. I went, okay. So I went away. I took the prescription. I thought, I'll start taking it because I'm desperate. You know, I've gone here for help. If this is going to stop what happened the other day, then I'll take it. But it's not forever. You know, I've got to find another way. And in the meantime, I spoke to a friend who said to me, have you thought of going to see an endocrinologist? So I did. I got a referral. It took a while to get that. The doctor wasn't happy that I wanted a second opinion, but I got to see this endocrinologist, and because we had private healthcare, I was able to pay to do that, which meant I could get it done, because I'm not sure I would have got there otherwise. Anyway, he did lots of blood tests. We talked about my history. I went right back to when I was a teenager. I'd had glandular fever as a child, as a teenager. So we talked about the history. So then when I went back for the results, he took loads and loads of blood. he said to me, "You've got ME, now known chronic fatigue syndrome." I didn't know what that was. This was in 2003, and I'd never heard of it. And he said the full name, which I still can never say, myalgic encephalomyelitis or something or other. I like chronic fatigue, it's easier. So anyway, I said, "So what is it then?" And he said, "Well, basically it is the most extreme exhaustion that you're ever going to feel." He said, "Some people, there's not a lot known about it. Some people would say it's been brought on by a virus." And, you know, he said as much as he could about it. He said, "But basically there's no cure for it." And he said, "You need to go away and get a good rest, a good balance of rest and exercise and eat healthily." So I remember thinking at the time, thank God it's nothing terminal. And also I thought, okay, well, if it's just because I'm exhausted, then I got myself to that stage. I can get myself out of it. I'm not terminally ill like my husband was. It's not cancer or anything like that. It's just tiredness. Okay, it's extreme tiredness, but it's just tiredness. And what solution is there for tiredness? Sort your life out, you know. So that and the other thing is, there was no way, thankfully, two things. Thankfully, I had so much to live for. I felt I had so much to live for. Mainly my son, you know, my reason. My book is called My Reason and Me. And that's why, because he was my reason for getting out of bed on so many occasions. And he was my reason this day to sort my life out and to get well. So that then started a journey of, and the other thing, I had no qualms with taking responsibility for my own health. You know, I didn't expect somebody else to put it right for me. So that was the other thing I was grateful for. So that started a journey. 4 years, I would say, it took me to recover from chronic fatigue syndrome. So what I would say was fully recovered. But it took me that long, and I don't believe, and I know it doesn't have to take that long for other people now, because I've coached people and it hasn't taken them that long. But it took me 4 years because I was learning. I didn't know, I had nobody to help me. I wasn't going to the doctor. I didn't want to go to the doctor because all they would do would give me pain relief for the pain, antidepressants, and maybe sleeping tablets or something. And I didn't want that. So I went the natural route, and I had to delve. I had to discover. I had to find what worked. And some things I tried, you know, it worked, and some things didn't. But you have to give it time. So that's why it took 4 years. So I went to nutritionists. I looked at my diet. I also, at the time, through our business, I used to do networking, business networking. So every Friday morning, we used to go to the local BNI in Canterbury, and I met lots of interesting people there. And I met a lady there that was a neuro-linguistic programmer, practitioner or teacher. And I got talking to her about that, and I had never heard of it. So I went and had a few sessions with her because I told her my situation. She said, "Come along, come and see me." So I did. I went and had a few sessions with her. Well, it changed my life. It was mind-blowing, literally. The stuff I shifted was unbelievable. You know, the programming, the patterns of programming I had, you know, the beliefs that I had since I was a child, that had led me to live the life that I'd led, to push myself to the limit. You know, I was a person that liked closure. So if I was decorating a bedroom or decorating a room, I would start at 8 o'clock in the morning and work right through till 11 o'clock at night without stopping for a drink, for a break or anything, because I just had this job to do. There's lots of programming that I knew, I then could see had led me to becoming exhausted. Years actually of being burnt out, you know, always getting burnt out. It was the way I was choosing, the way my mind was, and things I was putting myself through. So hell of a lot of learning there, a hell of a lot of releasing and changing and reprogramming of my mind. So that had a massive impact on me as a person. It gave me the drive and the determination also to keep going with my quest for better health and to recover. So I decided to train in it. So I was still suffering with exhaustion and everything, and I decided to train in NLP, but I did. There was fire in my belly at that point. There was fire in my belly because I want to do this for other people. I want to show others how life-changing this stuff is. So I trained as a practitioner, then I trained as a master practitioner, all the time still doing everything else with my health, different things, different pieces. So my health was very up and down. It was like a roller coaster. I'd go up and I'd think, yeah, I found it, I've got the solution, that's it, I'm better. I felt good for a few weeks, and then I'd come crashing back down again. I'd have a relapse because you'd do a bit too much and everything. So in those 4 years, I learned so much. I got so much knowledge. I made so many changes, and I focused on not just one area of my life, not just mindset. Mindset was life changing, but it's not just all about that. It's the first, I'd say it's the first stage, but also your diet, how you nourish your body. So there were 6 areas that I had to change, focus on, adapt to be able to recover. And after 4 years, I considered myself to be fully recovered. But I then there'd been challenges in my relationship with my husband. I was a very changed person. And sometimes when we change, you know, we meet that person at that time, but also I can look back and think I was very much a rescuer. I rescued him, I rescued his children. And it wasn't necessarily right for me. I don't regret. I was with him 10 years. I made the decision to leave. It was amicable. The boys were grown up. They didn't need me. Like, his boys were grown up. They didn't need me anymore. So I wouldn't have left them. And in fact, they're still my sons, particularly the youngest. He lives in Peru now, and we're very close. You know, still calls me mum. And every time I hear mum, it just fills me with so much joy that he calls me mum. You know, even though me and his dad are separated, I'm his mum, and it makes everything I went through absolutely worth it when I hear that mum, you know, from a child that I didn't give birth to. And but anyway, we separated and went our separate ways, and that was the final element to my life changing. That relationship wasn't right for me. So when I say about change my life, it includes relationships sometimes. You know, not always, but sometimes there's a relationship that's not serving you. And I wouldn't say to everyone, leave your relationship. But for me, that was the final straw that I needed, that final thing that I needed, final brick I needed. And I came away from that relationship. And although life was challenging, really challenging for a good few years, I stayed healthily, and I haven't looked back. I'm now married again. That's like, you know, that was a long time ago. God, I feel like Elizabeth Taylor. But I've never looked back. And yes, life throws its challenges. I've been through many challenges. I went through a divorce. That wasn't nice at times. I've lost a lot of money through things, you know, and had huge amounts of debt. And even though I was left okay after my husband died, and then you've got all the guilt around that, you know, and I've been through many, many, many challenges, but I'm happier, healthier, and stronger than I've ever been. You know, I still go through challenges. Life still throws challenges, but the way I deal with them means that I don't ever go back to that health I was in. So in a nutshell, that's my life up until now. Sort of. There's a bit more since then. I'll let you speak now.
Yeah, no, it's listen, and you know, I suppose firstly is thank you for sharing that. You know, there's so much there. You know, are you now where you're supposed to be?
Yes, I believe I am, but I still think there's more.
Sure.
You know, it's ongoing. I had lots of people when I was networking, business networking. I was always, you know, you tell your story when you meet people, it comes out, and the amount of people that said, I know somebody that's got ME. Oh, I've suffered with that. I was meeting people all over the place, because you attract those people to you, and you tell your story and everyone can relate. And I thought, my goodness, this is amazing. So they'd say, what did you do? You look amazing. You know, I can't believe that you were once like that. you know, you look amazing. I'd love to tell my friend or my mum or whatever about you. So they used to say, what did you do? And I didn't know where to start because there was so much. And I don't want that to sound daunting to people that are at that stage, that actually they've got to do so much, because you do it gradually. It's baby steps, it's bite size. It's not hard to do. But it's about starting something new. It's about healing your body and your mind. So that's the start of it, and I did that. And then it's about changing your habits. And everybody has different habits that are not serving them, different programming. Not everyone's the same, but there are some very general rules. But I couldn't put that into one conversation. It was just impossible. And I found that I was telling people, I was like, blah, 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 blah. Well, you've heard me speak, but telling people, and they'd go, whoa, you know, it was just too much information. And actually, they probably didn't get any of it. So it was from that day that I thought, I need to put this into a system. I need to put all this information down into an easily relatable system that people can follow, like I did. You know, I got all this information in a very roundabout, random way, and I was very up and down. But actually, if I put this into a system of only the stuff that worked, then people can get there sooner than I did. And that was the start. So that was 5 years ago. I decided to, I was working in an office job, and I was made redundant, and I'd got back to doing 12-hour days. I thought, this isn't serving me, get out. And that's what I do now. You know, it's like, okay, I was made redundant, but I decided at that time I wasn't going to go and look for another job. I will find another way. And at the time, my husband said, no, I'll support you. And that's 5 years ago, I started my business, Alison Smith, and I created the energy stress relief system. And that's the journey that I've been on. Got into huge debt doing that business. You know, the technology I needed, and I wrote my book in that time as well. And I've coached people, so I've you know, earned money from that as well. I've done workshops. So I created the system, and that's where I am now, is workshops, coaching. I've done an online course. There's 2 online courses that I have, which I'm having to redo all the technology for. That is another thing where somebody's let me down again. It's cost me thousands, and I'm redoing that now. So that's all in progress, but it's there. I've had people buy it and are using it, and it's a very easy to follow. So it's a video course of me explaining different elements. It's split up into the 6 sections. There's one course that goes into totally mindset, and there's one that goes into overall the energy stress relief system. But now I'm becoming more, I'm developing my spiritual side. So I've always had this feeling that I have healing abilities. I think everybody does. I believe everybody is spiritual. They're all just at different stages. We all have this in us. But over the years, and this is, you know, people I'm attracted to that need healing. I'm always attracted to people that need help, that need support. Ironically, now my husband, we found out, I've been with my husband now nearly 11 years, married 6, and we found out after we were married that he was on the spectrum, autistic spectrum. And what was really interesting was that he was having meltdowns like I used to have meltdowns. Now, he won't mind me saying this, but he's had 2 wives leave him, and I can sort of see or understand why, because and I don't judge them. You know, they left him, they had small children, they were young, and inexperienced in life, and that's not a criticism. I've had experience in life because of what I've been through. My journey has been a bit quicker to learning certain things, but because of the experience I've had in life, I could see in him, one of the things we say in NLP is the behavior isn't the person. So the way he was behaving when he had these meltdowns was as a result of something else. Not that he was a horrible person, not that he was an evil person. Anyone else, i.e. ex-wives, would think he was an evil person because they couldn't see past that. I became an evil person, not evil, but I became a nasty person when I had my meltdown. I said nasty things, but that wasn't me, you know. And so when I saw this in my husband, Mark, his name is, I could see past that, and I thought, okay, I was meant to meet this person. I'm not giving up on him, you know, although during his meltdown, so they call them red rages, meltdowns, they would happen on average every 6 weeks. And it wasn't nice. You know, he would say and do horrible things in that time. I'm quite a sensitive person, and it's very hard to take those knockbacks and not let it affect you. So when I say that I've gone through even more stress, I have gone through even more stress even with that. And I have to keep myself strong. But I didn't give up on him. Anyway, we worked out through other things that he was quite likely on the spectrum, and he comes out at like what they call the Asperger's level. But once we knew that, I read lots of books on it. I learned about it because I didn't know anything about it. And I got him to listen to, because he's not very good at reading, processing stuff. He can't, lots of text is not good for him. So I started to read. I said to him, I want to be able to read this. And thankfully, he took responsibility, because up to a point, he wouldn't take responsibility, and it was always all my fault, blah, 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 blah. But thankfully, there was a turning point, and he took responsibility, and we read these books together. He could relate, and it was at the time when the A word came out as well. There was a lot on about that. He could relate to so many things. It opened up a whole new discussion for us. So we read these books. I learned how his brain was programmed. I learned why he reacts the way he does. I learned what he needs to be able to live in this world, you know, without having red rages. Anyway, in time, all the things that so it's very much a case of me having to work around him more, because he can't adapt so easily. I am very adaptable, I can do that. But just for his acceptance, there were times when we could laugh at it. Like, I'll say something and his thing will, because he doesn't quite get it, and he'll start to react, and I'll go, now come on, you know that's your Aspie brain. You know, not hearing that the way it is or whatever, and we could laugh about it. But prior to that, there'd been horrendous times, and I could have left him, you know, many occasions because of the hurt. But we've got to a point now where if he does have a meltdown, the recovery time's very quick. It doesn't last long, and I often see it coming, so I can you know, help him to avoid it. Hence the guitars. His specialist subject is music, and this is why we have this retreat at the end of the garden, so that he can get away and do what he needs to do to chill after a hard week at work. So yeah, that was really again a learning curve. So sorry, I was going on the spiritual path. So I have felt that I'm always attracted to people that need help, and also I notice energy coming out of my hands, you know, when I'm around people that need it. So I now can see why my energy's got drained so drastically in years gone by. You know, sitting on a crowded commuter train, all those energies, I was absorbing all of that. So I've gone on, my path is going, it's not a different route, it's another route that complements everything that I've been through, this journey. So I'm going further to, and I did my practitioner course in theta healing. I qualified in that on Monday, and I know it's going to go further. And so I've learned how to protect my energies. I still don't like, I don't like shopping. I don't like going to supermarkets. I don't like going to shopping malls. I'm not a person to go to, you know, shopping malls doing clothes shopping. That to me is my worst nightmare. I just would rather not buy clothes. You know, I just don't like it because it can drain me. But I know how to protect my energies now in lots of different ways. So anybody that suffers with burnout, it is a case as well of, you know, learning to protect your energies in other ways. So that is another element to burnout.
It is interesting, and as you say, it's energy preservation, and
Hmm.
giving more than you've got,
Hmm.
or sort of,
Yeah,
it's the old adage of burning the candle at both ends, and
yeah,
in the middle
definitely.
as well. It's
Yeah,
all
yeah.
those.
I did that for years, but I don't now, and I know how to
Mm,
say no now as
mm,
well. I put me first, and that again, I go back to my book, My Reason and Me. My reason was Thomas getting out of bed every morning, and my reason to go on the journey I've gone on was because of him. Emmy could be me or Emmy, and so it's like a double entendre there. No, you don't call it that anyway.
mm,
It's double meaning,
mm.
and uh, yeah. And I say to people, we all think it's selfish to put ourselves first. Where did that come from? Why is it selfish to put us first? Because if we don't put us first, we can't help anybody. If we're not strong, if we don't look after ourselves, you can't be there for your loved ones. So it has to be you first. And that doesn't mean you're selfish. That doesn't mean that I won't drop everything for somebody that needs it. I will, but I won't continuously do it for people that aren't willing to help themselves. Right.
It's it's amazing. Take us right back. I mean, mini Alison, junior Alison. What sort of a person were we talking to?
When I was a child,
Yeah, yeah.
you mean? Yeah. Um, yeah, I was a very quiet, deep person. Um, if I'm honest, when I was at school, I didn't feel part of it. I didn't feel the same as everyone else. I felt, yeah, a bit of a stranger. I didn't feel part of the group, if you like. Um, I didn't really like school. Funny enough, I liked the learning, which is weird, but I didn't like being in that school environment very much. I didn't really enjoy it. We lived in a village growing up. So although I was born in East London, we moved out to a village outside Colchester when I was 4 years old, and I went to school there. So there wasn't much of a bus service when I was growing up. So I never went into the town. I was a tomboy. I much preferred boys' company than girls because I didn't like the bitchiness of girls. It upset me the way they spoke and the way they would fall out. I didn't like it. Boys didn't do that. They were very, what you see is what you get. There was no bitchiness. I just felt more comfortable with boys. I can remember we moved. So when we first moved out to Colchester, we lived on an estate in a village, and then we moved off of the estate onto a house on a country road. And my only form of entertainment as a teenager around there, because it was in the middle of nowhere, was our local pub. But it was lovely. It was a local village pub. My dad would be in there, all the parents would be in there. Us teenagers would sit in a corner quietly with our bitter lemon because it was the cheapest drink. And we had our youth club at the other end of the village. So as a teenager, that's where I would go when I was of an age where I didn't want to just be hanging around the streets, just talking. But we never got into trouble hanging around the streets. We just sat because it was somewhere to go. But when we moved out of the estate, we had like a little outhouse, and my sister and I used to use it as our snug. So we'd have friends. We could go there and have our friends there. And it was like we weren't ever allowed to take boys up to our bedroom, but we were allowed to take them into there, because it was like it's just by the kitchen and everything. And because I used to hang out with all these boys, it wasn't in a sexual way at all. That was the last thing from my mind. They were just friends. They just happened to be boys. But I can remember I used to get them to walk me home. So it was like a bribe, because I didn't want to walk home on my own when it was dark, because it was a dark country road. I'd get them to walk me home, and I'd say, I'll make you a sandwich, make you a cheese sandwich, and we'll go out in the sun and we'll sit and listen to music and all that if you walk me home. So we'd have a bit of time in the pub, but then I thought, if I get them to walk home, I'll bribe them with a sandwich, and I get to walk home, because I was scared to walk on my own. And I can remember this one time, my mum was telling me, I came through the back gate and we used to have to walk past the kitchen window, and I walked through the gate, and then there were about 5 or 6 lads following behind me. Now, my dad, who was a stockbroker, it was a rare occasion that he was home early enough to do the washing up and everything, and he watched us all go past the window, watched all, and my mum said, he said, are we going to allow that? Are we going to allow, did you see all those boys that she's taking in? And my mum said, yes. She said, the only reason they're in there is because you're home, otherwise they'd be in here with me as well. Because they were scared of my dad. But you know, we would all be in the house. My mum would be doing the ironing, we'd have music on, and you know, we'd all be in the house with my mum. You know, I wasn't one to go into town to nightclubs or anything like that. I loved home life. I still love home life. I'm a home person. I love making home, and it's very important to me. And yeah, so that's how I was. I was a tomboy.
Who do you take after, your mother or your father?
Probably my father more.
Yeah.
I have elements of my mum, but my father, yeah, more so. And I don't know whether that's because we both worked in the city. You know, I started commuting with him when I was 17 years old, and we had very similar lifestyles, you know, and yeah, I'm very, and actually we're very close, as in I often think, I know when I need him, he rings me, he picks up. Yeah, we are close. I'm close to my mum as well for different reasons. You know, my mum has been that, they've both been that rocks. They've both always been there for me. My mum is the nurturer, the one that supports me emotionally. You know, I can sit and talk to her. You know, when Tony was dying, we used to sit on the train going back and forth to the hospital in London, and we just had the most amazing talks. I can still talk to my mum now about any feeling that I have. I talked to her about the situation with Mark, you know, with his red rages, and she doesn't judge him, you know, not at all. She loves him and she doesn't judge him. So I know I'm safe to talk to my mum. If I were to talk to my dad about elements of Mark, I think he'd be very protective of me. And I'm not sure he would be as accepting, but he loves him too, you know, it's not, it's fine. But so my mum, yeah, emotionally, she really supports me. My dad, he supports me emotionally more now. He's a lot mellower than he used to be, but he gets me because we're like each other. I'm like him.
It's what I'm getting from you is you're very kinesthetic.
Yeah, definitely.
The language you use to describe your dad is very kinesthetic. Your mother is more auditory. You talk to your mother.
Yeah.
Your dad, you know how he feels, you know, and
Yeah.
it's interesting there that's.
They're my 2 prime senses, actually, both of those, auditory and kinesthetic anyway. Yeah.
Makes sense. I was going to say, does that resonate with you? Does that tally?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And then there's the empathic side of you, you know, that very much, and as I think can't find it, but as you described it, is that, you know, that the carer, you know, you're drawn towards people who need, or people who you need that.
And that's not a problem for me now. Well, it never was, because I've learnt boundaries. I'm learning, still always learning. I've learnt more about boundaries. I also think there's a reason for that. And although it was a challenge to start with, even Tony, it turns out that he probably had the brain tumour all the time I knew him. So when I met Tony, he had a brain tumour, and his personality was affected by that brain tumour. And ironically, the traits of his personality are very similar to my husband's now, but for different reasons. Interesting, isn't it? So I was attracted to him too. But yeah, but I've got boundaries now. But also I believe that, I do believe we're put on this earth for a reason. And I believe that the fire in my belly is to help people to change their lives for the better. And I think being attracted to relationships, all my relationships, they've been people that have, well, most people need something, but they have been needy in whatever way, different ways. One was a widower, one was dying from a brain tumor, although he didn't know it, and Mark now on the spectrum. You know, they've all needed support in some way. And I have been able to give that, albeit in the early days to the detriment of my health. But the way I see it now, and this is why I think the spiritual side is more important for me, is that actually I'm going to continue helping people in whatever form I need to help them, but I'm learning how to protect myself in the process. I need to be strong to be able to help these people, but I'm not going to stop helping them because I feel that that is my purpose.
It's super interesting. Talk to us about theta healing.
Yeah, interesting. But I was talking to my mum about this morning because my mum goes to church. She's a verger at her local church. She's very religious. That we went to Sunday school as children. I went through all that. For me, it was more of a community. You know, we went camping and we did all these things. So I went to Sunday school, then explorers, then pathfinders. I went through all that. I was also a girl guide, a brownie and a girl guide, and it was all that we did. We were introduced to the church as children, and as youngsters, we were taken to Sunday. My mum took us to Sunday school. My dad never went. The only time my dad went to church was Christmas Eve after the pub, midnight mass. And my mum used to, so she introduced us to the church, Sunday school, and took us. When we got to the age of teenagers where we had our own mind, she didn't make us go. So she was never a mum that said, you have to go to church. So when we got to that age where we said, don't want to go anymore, I want to be going out playing, I've got something else to do, she didn't make us go. We stopped going. And then as I went through life, I wasn't really sure whether I never really thought about it for a while. Then I started to question it, you know, probably in my late 20s. And I thought, I'm not sure I believe in God, or not God as how they say God. You know, I'm not sure I believe that this one, you think of him as a man. I think that's the problem. You think of it as a man. And I thought, I'm not sure I believe that this man created all that it is. And also, we were taught at school about evolution. So which is it? You know, I suddenly realised, you know, all those years later, I suddenly realised we were taught two things at school that actually contradicting each other. How does that work? You know, that's what my thought process. So I started to doubt that there was a God. I never really thought about it, but then I thought actually, and I then would have considered myself an atheist. I didn't go to church. I then started, you know, with the NLP and the mindset and everything. And then in recent years, I've started to believe in creator of all that is. That I believe more on the scientific, you know, that there are, I'm now going into the 7 planes of existence. So theta healing is about the 7 planes of existence. So you have, I don't know if you know, I'm reading the book about it at the moment actually, which is really good. And so you've got the first plane, which is the organic rock, minerals. The second plane is the non-organic, and then you've got the second plane is the organic, so the plants, the trees, you know, that sort of life. And I think they put fairies in there as well. I'm still learning, so if I get this wrong, you know, forgive me. And then the third plane is us, humans, animals. The fourth plane is spirits, so where we believe we go to when we die. And then the fifth plane is ascended masters and gods, goddesses, you know, archangels, that sort of thing. The sixth plane is the plane of the laws, so law of attraction, law of gravity, all those types of things, all the laws. And then the seventh plane is creator of all that is. So that's what theta healing. So when I was talking to my mum, I thought actually, and you know, I've had conversations about this quite a lot. And what's really nice is I'm finding I'll be able to talk to my mum about it, whereas before I avoided it because she believed and I didn't. So I avoided that conversation. But actually, what I've realised, and we said that this only this morning, that actually we believe in the same thing. We just call it something different. There is a creator of all that is. However, and it's not a person. I don't believe it's a person, and we're all part of it. It's a. I'm not explaining this very well, but it's not a thing. It's just a atmosphere almost, if you like. You know, it's just everything. It's all encompassing, and that's all under that. That's what I believe, and I believe we aren't the only people on a planet. There are other living beings on other planets, and I do believe that we've got the different timelines running at the same time. But I'm still going into that. It's all still very new to me, and you know, it's I'm finding it really, it makes sense to me. But theta healing is where we can go in and remove beliefs. So it's very similar to NLP, but done in a different way. We're getting the creator to do the healing. It's not us doing the healing. We're just witnessing it. So we're asking for it to be done.
What's the typical application? What's the methodology of actually practicing?
Yeah, so you meditate. So every day I go up to the seventh plane. It's a form of meditation. So you ground yourself. You ground yourself down to Mother Earth, and then you come up through. So chakras. I've trained in Reiki, so I know about all the chakras and things like that. So you ground yourself into Mother Earth. You come up. You imagine. You visualize yourself coming up through your body, out through a bubble of light, and then you imagine yourself going up, walking yourself up through those planes, up to the seventh plane, and that takes you into a theta state. So you know the different brain waves. You've got different brainwave states. Theta state is the state that we're in when we're children. So when you know our conscious mind is shut off, you know all that, you know, the ego, it's all shut off, and we as children we absorb everything like a sponge. That's theta state. When we're driving a car, we often go into theta state. When you're drifting in and out of sleep, you're in theta state. So basically, by that meditation, you're going up to theta state. And the more you do it, I practice it every day. The more you do it, the easier it is to go up there. And once you're up there, you're communicating with Creator, all it is. And you can guide them to. So when I meditate every day, I send healing to the whole planet, to everybody on the planet, you know, unconditional love out there, you know, that's what I do every day. So you're giving out all the time, but also you can tune in to somebody's, you ask, so once you've done, if you're working with somebody else, you ask if you can enter their space, and by going up into the theta state, you can pick up. And I have over, you know, where I've been, I do regular Reiki shares every week that we go and we practice on each other and we share. And I pick up things now from other people. And then afterwards they tell me I've picked up right. Don't ask me how it works. I'm actually finding it really amazing that I'm actually, so it's about trusting your, you know, we say about trusting your instincts, and people, you know, always go by your gut instincts. Our problem is we have a gut instinct, but we just choose to ignore it, don't believe it, whatever. And that's why I say we've all got it there. Now, one thing, since I've been doing this training, they've said, right, just go with the first thing that comes into your mind. You know, just say it. And what's really nice, when we go for the Reiki shares, we are in a safe place because we're all training, you know, and we're in a safe place. So we don't feel silly. And so you come out, you just say it, you know, whereas if you were probably working on somebody, you may not say it. You'd stop yourself thinking, oh, I might upset them, I don't. So we share it. And by doing that all the time, you're affirming that actually what you're picking up is right. So yeah, it just comes there. It's an instinct. Don't ask me how, but it works. And I've been picking up these things, and I've been picking up people's names, relatives, and all this sort of stuff. And by that, you go back and you can heal the inner child. You can, you know, all lots of stuff. Very interesting. But it's, as I say, it's very similar to NLP in the fact that you can change your programming. You can get rid of limiting beliefs that you've got as a child, that you absorbed when you're in that theta state as a child.
It is amazing. I mean, I the more people I speak to, the more I study, the more I look, and you know, and it was actually Mel Robbins did it was a TED talk.
Yeah.
But anyway, one of the and I can't remember was in the TED talk or a similar talk, but she talked about, you know, the brain being capable of taking on 11 million bits of information per minute. However, consciously we can only take on 40 to 50.
That's right. Yeah.
So if ever you kind of wanted to sort of, I don't know, slap a scientific question mark on it, as in, you know, how is it, excuse me, that we can take on all this? And you think, I mean, that the phenomenal part of the human body.
Yeah.
You know, and you've seen it in so many forms and in other people and all the rest. And yet we I mean, it's like 0.001, whatever the percentage of say 50 is compared to even 11 million or even a million, you know, it doesn't matter the statistics. It's just, and then you kind of go, and you know, it's quite possible that we actually scientifically we know nothing in a ratio. So having the strength to just say, listen, I don't know, but I'm open to something. You know, I can't slap a big label on it. I can't put a tag on it. I can't, you know, and that takes courage too, because it goes, it's kind of non-conforming. It's outside of standard. It's
yeah, that's right, exactly. I mean, I will be judged by this sort of stuff.
Unfortunately,
People will say I'm woo-woo. It's, you know, I'm not going to go out there and practice on people until I'm confident. And obviously they're not going to, they have the right, you ask to enter their space. They, you know, it's their choice. But yeah, it's like learning to drive a car, isn't it? I've passed my test, but now I'm going to learn. But it's just another thing that I believe will help me to help others. Because I'm using my instinct, and it's something that I've pushed away so many times and then been proved right afterwards. So
I think what's going to be phenomenal for you is it's the instinct, but mixed in with wisdom,
everything else,
experience, everything else, and I mean, there's you've had a lot of categories, you know, in your life, and you know, what are you most proud of?
My son.
Yeah. Makes sense.
And I'm most proud of him because he is a well-centered, kind individual. He has never given me an ounce of trauma in my life. He's never, ever given me a reason to worry. Yes, worry as in you want the best for them, but nothing he's done. He's kind. And actually, he's like an old head on young shoulders. I feel like he's been here before. You know, for somebody of only 25, I've got to 53 to learn what I've learned. But I think he knows a lot more than I did at that age. And I'm proud because I brought him up on my own. You know, I had family around to support me, but I had to make the decisions for him on my own. I couldn't share any of those decisions. You know, what school he went to. All those little things. So yeah, I am proud of that. Probably my proudest thing.
Do you like yourself? Do you love yourself?
I do now. I didn't. For a lot of years I didn't. But yeah, I do now. And I love myself enough to look after myself now.
That's key, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, you've got to love yourself, because if you don't, you won't take care of yourself.
No, so much there. Talk to us about your book.
My book. So I started writing it when Thomas was about 6 years old, and my purpose for writing it wasn't to sell it as a book. You know, in this day and age, you can print one book. You don't have to print loads of books. You can just make one book. So my purpose was to write it to give to Thomas as an adult, because it's a memoir, so that he could, as an adult, get to know more about his dad. You know, as I said, I've shared things to him about his dad throughout his life, but as a child, you take that on in different ways. Some of it will go, some of it you won't understand. But as an adult, I knew he'd be able to relate to it better. I just wanted to give him a gift of, however, okay, it would be my portrayal of his dad, but you know, that's as much as I could give. So I started writing when he was 6, and I went way ahead. I think I got to chapter 13, and I got to the point where Tony fell ill in Wales. The story I've told you, I couldn't go on anymore. And I was then I was married again with stepchildren, and so, you know, I was in that not so good place. So I didn't have a happy ending either. I didn't have anything to aim for. So I got to a really sad point in the book, but I didn't feel any better at that point than I did then. So I couldn't go forward. It was nice to go to. So I stopped. Then I divorced, remarried, was with Mark. Thomas went off to university, and then we married, and Mark and I married. And then I thought, right, okay, I need to finish it. I'm ready. It's just suddenly I'm ready to finish this book. And then the second thing, I started my business with the energy stress release system. I thought it now becomes a business tool, because it's, I hope, an inspirational story for people. If it gives somebody else a reason to take responsibility for their life and make the changes they need to change, then it's worth it as well. So it started as a gift to my son, but then it became a business tool as well. So I set a goal to finish it. I worked out, I knew I was going to I looked into self-publishing and different ways. I spent a lot of time looking into that. I thought, right, I'm going to self-publish, because the way I looked at it was, if you get with a publisher, you're still expected to promote it. You know, it's changed a lot these days. First of all, you have to have lots of followers before they'll even take you on anyway. So you're doing all that work to get followers. Then when you get it, you have to promote it, or for them to take a cut of it. So I just thought I might as well self-publish, and more people were doing it. And at the end of the day, self-published books can get out there just as easily as, you know, the traditionally published way. So I decided to self-publish. That was a whole new ball game, learning about that. So I worked back. I thought, okay, to be able to publish my book on Thomas's 21st birthday, I need to have it finished, the manuscript finished, by the end of May. So his birthday's in August. So by the end of May, I need to have it finished. So I set that goal, and I was working from home then, so I spent all my time writing my book, and it was really cathartic, as you can imagine. All these years on, and I still cried buckets when I was talking about Tony and going through that. You saw me, I still cry when I talk about it now. It will always be there. I'm in a good place. I'm in love with my husband. I love my husband. I have a lovely life. But Tony's still the father of my son. He was taken tragically from me, and I will never get over that. But I can live with it, and it doesn't destroy my life. It doesn't affect my life. But I still feel when I talk about it, you know. So I cried buckets. So that was another good step on my journey. And I remember Mark used to come home from work, and every now and then I would read him chapters of it to get another perspective of it, because I was so close to it. And then I would cry when I was reading it to him. And this is what's so lovely. He accepts that, you know, that I cry, you know, about Tony. And it was lovely. He cried at one point, you know, about Tony, never met him. And we've got through. Anyway, I finally finished the book. So I'd set the target end of May to finish the book. I finished it. And the feeling was amazing. When you type at the end, you know, it's just, oh. Mark came home, and he got home. I said, I finished my book, and he's like, yeah. And then I realised, so I'd finished it earlier than my goal, which I often do when I set a goal. I always finish it before. And then when I noticed it was Tony's birthday that I finished it on his birthday, and I didn't realise until after I'd finished it that it was his birthday, which was lovely. Really amazing. So then I went through published, and we had the book launch on Thomas's birthday, on his actual 21st birthday, in a bookshop, Daunt Books, it's called, in Cheapside in London. Now, Cheapside runs parallel to Gresham Street, where I first met Tony when we worked for NatWest Stockbrokers. I first met him in the offices there. We worked there. So we used to drink in the pubs in Cheapside. I used to shop in the shops in Cheapside. And also, after Tony died, he had so many people come to his funeral. There were 200 odd people come to his funeral. And there were a lot of people from the city that couldn't make his funeral because they couldn't leave the office empty. The whole office wanted to come, but they couldn't. So I did a memorial service up in the city at the Guildhall Church for the people that couldn't come to his funeral. And another 200 odd people came to that in the February. So that literally was around the corner from where I had my book launch. So it was surreal standing in this bookshop, talking about my journey, that, you know, that was over there, that's where I met your dad. So for Thomas, it was just amazing because he got to see a lot of mine and Tony's old work colleagues. They came to my book launch. They were telling him stories about his dad that even I didn't know, which was lovely. And then I gave Thomas my book. He went to Cornwall for a few days for his 21st. He went to a festival there. And when he came home, so he was living away from home then. And I got a text from him. And he said, Mama, he said, I didn't want to do this by text. He said, I wanted to wait until I saw you. He said, but I couldn't wait to tell you. He said, I've just finished your book. And he said, I just wanted to say, I'm so proud of you. He said, I knew what you went through, but I didn't really know. Which you wouldn't, because he was a child. I protected him. You couldn't relate to it. He said, I didn't really know. And he said, and I'm so, so proud of you. And he said, I feel like I know Daddy better now. And I said, that's all it was for. You know, that's all that matters. If I don't sell another book, I really don't care, because that was my purpose. That was my prime purpose. And he said to me, I'm quite like Daddy, aren't I? I went, yeah, very like him. And what's really strange, so I told you that Tony was a fisherman. Thomas went to university to do fisheries management. So even though he was 2 when his daddy died, he's become a keen fisherman. He lives and breathes it. He goes fishing overnight and then goes to work the next day from the riverbank. He fishes all weekend, and he catches massive fish that his dad would be proud of. And I know his dad never caught fish that big. And he's now working in an industry to do with fishing. He is working in his passion, which is really lovely. And so he read all this in the book, you know, he read all these things, and yeah, and his girlfriend actually is reading it as we speak. I gave her a copy at the weekend and she's reading it, so she can get to know about his life and his daddy as well. So for that reason, it was worth every minute. I enjoyed writing it. There was blood, sweat and tears when it came to the printing and the publishing and Amazon and all this sort of thing, but I enjoyed the writing it immensely. And I think one day I will write another, because I love writing. I absolutely love writing. But interestingly, I was told at the weekend on our Theta Healing course that they see me writing children's self-help books. And I'd never actually thought of that before. But actually now that's got my brain thinking, which it does. She set that ball in motion. I thought, actually, yeah, because I'm very passionate about this. There's a lot of mental health issues now with young children. I mean, there are children, you know, graduates are leaving university and they're burnt out before they even start work. So that's an issue. I'd like to speak in more universities and help people there. But children are becoming depressed, you know, and that's not on. That's not on. So actually, yeah, if I could write a story book that helps children to learn how to have calm, and, you know, I'm not going to share anymore because somebody else, I'm sure somebody else has already done it, but yeah, so maybe I'll do that.
No one else will have done it like you've done it. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what anyone else has done.
You always put a different slant on it, don't you? But so yeah, I have sold books and I still sell them. I don't promote my book. Don't ask me why. Maybe because the reason I wrote it wasn't primarily to help others. But now I've had people that have said that it's a really inspirational story, and it's given them a light at the end of the tunnel. It's given them reason to believe that no matter how bad they're feeling, you can get out of it. And so I should promote it for that reason. But I think you always, because it's my life story, you open yourself up, don't you? It's a very honest interpretation of my life, and I think that's probably what holds me back promoting it too much. It's on my website, and you know, I had 3 people buy it on this course at the weekend. So yeah, I should promote it more.
The right thing will happen at the right time.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So tell us in 1 or 2 words for you, what's your fire in the belly?
My fire in the belly, from a personal point of view, as in my goal, is to have my own retreat where I can have people to come and learn from me and to have treatment from all the amazing practitioners that I know that can help them to make their life the best it can be. That's what I'm working towards now.
Love it.
And
So
to change lots of people's lives for the better.
That's what it's all about.
Mm.
Where can people find out more, hunt you down, track you down?
I have my website, Alison T. Smith, so they don't have to spell my surname. Oh, Trethewey is my late husband's name, by the way. He was Cornish, so that's why I still have it, and I'm proud of it. And so, yeah, AlisonTSmith.com. There's lots of information on there. They can also contact me on my email, either Alison@AlisonTSmith.com or also works, info@AlisonTSmith.com. And anything that they want to know, I'll email them back. And yeah, I'm more than happy if they want to know anything more. As I say, at the moment, I'm changing the platforms that my course, well, not the platforms, that's not changing. I have a horrendous sales page, landing page, if you like, or promoting the course or talking about the course, describing the course. Don't like to use sales page. It gives information about the courses. It doesn't come from my heart. It was written on behalf of me, somebody that convinced me it was the right way to go. I don't like it. I never liked it. And it's being changed as we speak. So if anyone goes to my website now, about this date, September 2020, it won't be, it's not good. So speak to me if you want to know more about it. It does tell you what it's about, but it's just very salesy and I don't like it. Don't like it at all.
Perfect.
So that's been changed, but yeah.
What final message would you like to leave with people?
You have it in you to change your life. Don't look elsewhere and expect people to do it for you. Personally, I don't like going down the prescribed medication route. Sometimes there's a need for it. Yes, I'm not saying there isn't, but if you can do it the natural way, do it, because actually you're not it's not to the detriment. There's a whole new ball game. Yeah, it's the best way to do it, and you can do it. And there's lots of help out there, actually, lots and lots of help. You've just got to make that decision. And it's all about baby steps. So don't feel overwhelmed. Don't think I'm never going to do everything I need to do to get there, so I might as well give up now. No, it's not. With each baby step and each little habit that you put into place, life gets better. So it's not like you've got to do all that, and until you do all that, you're going to feel better. You're going to gradually feel better along the way. So just step by step, baby steps.
Alison, it's been an absolute pleasure. I look forward to seeing where you get to. So, and thank you for your openness and honesty.
Thank you, Pete. Thank you for having me.